I think as creatives, one of the most important and one of the hardest things that we sometimes have to do is hold space for the fact that we are in a season of stillness. And when I say that, I mean stillness in the sense that our job is to not do, just be creatively. Because creation is an energy, it ebbs and it flows, and it's like seasons. Sometimes you have a season where you just have this maximum output and it's high production, but sometimes you have a season where you need to rest. It's the balance between consumption and creation. In order to create beautiful things, you must consume beautiful things. You cannot be an observer of life, you have to be a participant in it. And that can be especially difficult for me, especially as a writer, when I have things I want to write or I have this feeling like I should be writing, but those words should, would, could can dig their own grave of inadequacy. They can make you feel like you're supposed to be doing things, but the only thing you're supposed to do is show up for yourself as best you can with the emotional healing tools that you currently have available to you. And this has been especially difficult for me in the past couple of months because I've had writer's block, and I'm just using that as kind of like a colloquial term because I don't believe writer's block is a thing. I believe writer's block is a byproduct, or like it's a symptom of a different affliction, right? I think writer's block means you are either creatively burnt out or you're not listening. And in the past, I've always attributed not listening, meaning you're not listening to your story and the characters in the world. Because, like I've said, when you hold space for your characters, they will speak to you and through you. Because, again, it's not about you, it's about them. You're just a conduit for something much greater and more beautiful than you could possibly comprehend. That's our job, to translate these stories. And sometimes when we approach the page with this idea that we are going to impose our will on the characters and on this world, sometimes we arrive at an impasse because the characters aren't talking to us, and because we can't see, hear, or feel what we need to, we can't write words. That's what I've always meant when I say listening. But I've realized in the past week that it's not that I'm not listening to the characters, it's I'm not listening to myself. My soul has been asking and demanding rest for months, and I have not been honoring that. And the reason I have not been able to write is because I have not held space for the stillness that my soul has been craving. Because I have the entire story outlined, all the chapters are outlined, I have everything broken down scene by scene. I know exactly what needs to happen, I know what everything looks like. I have all the details, but when I sit down to the page, I immediately feel this level of fatigue that I don't feel when I'm doing literally anything else. I don't feel the same level of spiritual exhaustion when I go to work out, when I go on a walk, when I sit down to read a book. But when I show up to the page, it's like there's something in me that's screaming out saying, Jahid, I just don't got it right now. One of the most important things that I've learned is that in this life, we have things that we are supposed to learn. And whether or not we learn those lessons peacefully or painfully, that's entirely up to us. So I can either show up to the page every day and try to force myself to write and force myself to put the words on the page and get frustrated when I can't and get fed up with the story and never want to come back to it. Or I can just take this season and just step back and say, okay, let me pour into my own cup. Let me show up for myself. Because how can I show up for these characters if I'm not taking the time to show up for me? You know what I mean? One thing I have to do is repeatedly affirm to myself that just because I'm taking a break does not mean I'm going to forget how to write or that I'm going to lose the story. It has always been my firm belief that people don't choose stories, stories choose people. And the story chose me because it knows I am the best person suited to tell it, and it will wait for me until I'm ready. And if that's the case for you, your story will wait for you until you are ready. So there's no need to rush. All things happen in divine timing when they're supposed to. Show up for yourself, and by showing up for yourself, you'll be able to show up to the page. So if you are in a season of stillness, honor that. There is nothing wrong with it. It is one of the most important ways that you can love on yourself and pour into your own cup. And by doing that, when the time comes for you to show up to the page again, best believe you are going to write some prolific shit. Peace.